Hi, welcome to my review of Meg 2, The Trench, directed by Ben Wheatley from 2023. Yes, we are back once again ready to discuss another film on the channel, this time around the sequel to The Meg, which we discussed very recently on the channel, and I had a good time watching that and talking about that film. And today will be the sequel, which I did say I'd be watching, soon after the first, and just to see what I think of it and to talk about it on the channel. But first of all, there will be a spoiler warning for this discussion. If you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend seeing it first, and then come back to this video, and we can go from there. We can talk about this from the comments, and to compare this to the first film and see what our thoughts are on this film. So with all that said, let's discuss my thoughts on this film, and we'll get straight into it. In terms of the Meg, the first film, I did really enjoy that one. I found it to be very fun, kind of campy, and also well made at times. Certainly with the kind of second half of the film, and I think visually it was just really appealing, and just the effects to the film, and really some of the characters as well. I did get invested in, and found them to be really enjoyable in their interactions. As for this film, I think it is very similar at times, to the first film. In terms of the plot, we just have a similar kind of setup in a sense, and this time around we've got this illegal mining operation, and essentially once again though, the characters, the main characters that we're following are kind of left, for the sharks, by the villains, and essentially the villains are very one note in this one though, and I found it to be less enjoyable in that sense. To the first film, I found the villains to be just really, not that enjoyable at all, and not even in a kind of campy way. The structure as well of the film is quite similar to the first one, and we have, the first half being, quite dark, and kind of under the water, and obviously the second half is more on land, and at least on the water as well, and generally much more fun than the first half, because I found with the first half, the setup, and it was nice to see for kind of returning characters, but I think with that first kind of half of the film, and setting up the plot and all this, and just the missions that were going on under the water, I thought that was a bit bland for me, and it's just very dull in places visually, and I think just it wasn't as fun as it could have been. I'm still enjoying the film because I did enjoy the characters, their interactions, and just some of the comedy was good, but a lot of the characters like Mac and DJ, that returning from the first film, they were kind of not really given too much to do until the second half, where I found it to be much more fun. It was much more kind of in the vein, in the tone to the first film, and it's just much more kind of nice to see the characters and how they're interacting. It was more vibrant, they were more kind of upbeat, and just having fun really, and I think with the Megs kind of really come into play in the second half, that was when it was much more enjoyable, and it was kind of like a different film really for me. But I did enjoy how it played on the first film with the characters. Obviously Jonas, once again played by Jason Statham, who is great in this film again, and I think this character of Jonas has become the stepfather of course Mayr, and after the death of Shuya from the first film, of course, and it's really interesting how they've done that, and also at the same time we've got, of course, Jing, kind of playing the uncle of Mayr, and kind of him and of course Jason Statham are the ones that are kind of looking after her, and just making sure she's okay, kind of thing. But I just really enjoyed how Jonas, is the stepfather, of course, of Mayr, and just how they kind of interact in the film, and it builds upon their kind of relationship, kind of father-daughter relationship from the first film, and I thought that was really well done actually, and that was something that did drive the film at first, where the plot and some of the other side characters that are introduced in this film, and just the whole tone of this, and the main kind of setup wasn't as interesting at all, but some of the stuff that was playing on the first film I did enjoy. I did find the prologue to be really, really fun, and this is something that I wanted to see more of. We have obviously in the Cretaceous period, the T-Rex that kind of just stumbles onto the beach, and then basically this Meg comes out of the water and just eats this T-Rex. Just, it's so funny, and it was really epic, and obviously a massive dinosaur fan, so it was great to see this, and I wanted to see more of that kind of thing, and we kind of got that in the second half, just with the over-the-top nature of it, and obviously the snappers, which were kind of throughout a lot of the film, in the second half especially, that was really cool to see them and how they kind of, well, this threat, on the ground level, different characters like DJ especially, just kind of trying to tackle them, and to try and take them out, and that was really cool because there's a lot of stealthy moments as well, on the land, in that final act, and it was just really fun, and just the action here is just so funny, and seeing especially DJ, Mac, and all these characters just banding together, and of course Jonas, once again, Jason Statham in this film is so much fun, and I think just the way he kind of leads this mission, but it is a bit different to the first film, and just a lot of the side characters have a bit more kind of screen time, and they're more kind of leading different sequences on their own, and it's really cool when they split up and all this kind of stuff. So it was really cool to see that, and I think the performances, as I say, from the returning characters are all really good. It's just the whole kind of plot, and the villains in this film, and some of the characters that were introduced, were not really for me, but I did really enjoy Jing, and I thought he was a standout, kind of performance here, and just the character he plays, the uncle, of course, of Mayr. He was one of those characters really introduced in this film that I thought really, really worked. But a lot of the other characters are just very throwaway, and the villains and their whole kind of scheming and the plotting, I thought that wasn't really for me in this film. It just wasn't done in a very enjoyable way. It was just so generic and just so boring at first. But luckily they're not really in the film throughout, entirely, and some of the characters just get really, in quite funny ways, actually picked off. The kind of Meg-proof glass, and when the Meg comes crashing through there, that was really funny. And I think what they're doing with the Megs in this film, it's kind of cool to see. I guess more Megs in this, and how kind of a group of Megs in this. I think in terms of the size comparisons to the first film with the Megs, and the Alpha Meg in particular, I think being the biggest Meg that they've seen, of course. Obviously, it's bigger than any of the Megs in the first film, but I think it wasn't really utilised actually enough for me, and it wasn't showcased enough. The prologue, obviously, where we see the true size, of this, that was something that was well done in the prologue. But I think generally in the second half, where the Alpha Meg is more involved in the film, and we have potential, kind of moments, sequences where, it could really be showcased, I think it's just a bit underwhelming for me. While the kind of Jason Statham at the end taking on the Alpha Meg, that was a really epic, kind of brutal kill, of course. It was really just an insane part of the film. I think it still was, kind of underwhelming for me personally. I just wanted a bit more, in that final act. There was just something lacking, and it wasn't quite living up to what I had, kind of in my mind. And, compared to the first film, it's not, that much of a kind of increase in size, just in the way it's kind of portrayed in the film, and, I think the way it's kind of its presence has felt. It was definitely epic, but it just wasn't epic enough, I will say that, and I just wanted a bit more in the end, and when, that final kind of showdown happened with the Alpha Meg kind of swimming along to Jason Statham, and that kind of that kill there, it was definitely a cool moment, but just after that I was thinking, is that kind of it, is that, the last we're seeing of the Meg, the Alpha Meg, and is that the biggest one in the film? And it just was something about the way it was built up, I guess, in the prologue, and the way it kind of culminated just doesn't quite match up for me, and it didn't quite, kind of come together in that sense, quite in the way that I wanted. But having said that, the final act is full of, just campy, fun moments with all the characters, and some parts of the film that are just so insane, and I think the massive, as well, giant octopus in the film, and I think just seeing, when all these different civilians, on the kind of the fun island, that's kind of introduced in that final act, and the way they're kind of interacting as well, and different moments there, so much fun, and I think definitely the final act in the second half makes up for the more kind of low-key, dull, quite generic at times first half of the film. As I say, while I definitely enjoyed the first half, there was never a point where I wasn't enjoying this film. I think it's when, the second half hits, that's when it really truly picks up, and final act is just all out kind of chaos, and something that's what I wanted from the film throughout, and it's not quite there, consistently, I think, and there's parts of the final act that are still a bit underwhelming for me, but overall, definitely a fun film, one that I did in the end, enjoy quite a bit, and I think it made up for, as I say, that kind of weaker first half of the film, and some of the dull parts there, and the plot, and the villains, and all this kind of stuff. I think the action, and the campy nature, and just the kind of insane kind of sequences in the second half, and especially the final act, I think it definitely makes up for that, and overall, it's definitely a film that I enjoyed, as I say, quite a bit. And so yeah, my rating for this film is a 68%, so definitely a pretty solid score for me, and one that I did enjoy overall, for sure, and I think it's not quite there with the first film, it's not as, consistently enjoyable, and I think the tone of this film, at first, there's a slight struggle, I find, just setting things up, and things when they kind of are trying to introduce different characters, the villains as well, and all this kind of stuff. With the plot, I think it does get bogged down in that, and it's not as enjoyable. But what they're doing with bringing back different characters and kind of building on that, I think that really worked, especially. And I think through the second half of the film, that's when the real action and the kind of the campy fun really kicks in. And I think overall, definitely an enjoyable film, and one that I had a good time watching, and definitely I suppose a worthy sequel to the first, just not as good as the first film for me, and definitely not as enjoyable, and as kind of well made and kind of just all out kind of fun throughout, as that first film, but definitely still one that I enjoyed and had a good time kind of seeing this as a follow-up to the first film, The Meg. And so yeah, that's my thoughts. What do you think on this film? It'd be really cool to hear in the comments your thoughts on this, your experience with this film. How does it compare for you to the first Meg film? That'd be great to discuss all this in the comments down below and to celebrate cinema. So yes, as always, take care and thanks for watching.